Mary Nykoff, since I'm looking right at you right now, would you be kind enough to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very nice.
That's the first time I ever got to do that in 18 years.
Really? Wow. Well, Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Mr. Deputy Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Chaplin.
Elizabeth?
Chavez.
Here.
Covert.
Here.
Desart.
Here.
DeCiani. Eckhoff.
Here.
Garcia.
Here.
Hart. Krajewski.
Here.
LaPlante.
Here.
Ozog.
Here.
Chalsky. Renahan.
Here.
Rutledge. Schwarzy.
Here.
Selman.
Here.
Tornatore.
Here.
And Zay.
Here.
You're muted, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Deputy Clerk, do we have a quorum of those present at the location, physically present in the boardroom?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So I have to go to a special little dialogue here. Give me 1 second to click on that tab. Okie dokie. Sorry about that. So I'm calling this meeting of the DuPage County Board to order. For the record, a physical quorum of the members is, oh, wait a minute, this is the wrong one. Is not present. Forgive me, I'm sorry, I'm messing up here.
I think you're okay there, Mr. Chairman, because a physical quorum is not present at the meeting. So I believe, I'm reading it too. I believe that was the proper one.
I think there's some terminology. Mr. Assistant State's Attorney, I'm sorry, I can't locate the terminology at the moment. Just for the record, can you advise?
Sure.
We will conduct our business today, but we have to acknowledge that there's not a quorum physically present. Mr.
Yes.
State's Attorney, there he is. I'm looking
So
at
just
him.
for the record, your recital would note that a physical quorum of the members is not present. However, Section 7E of the Open Meetings Act permits members to attend remotely. Myself, as your Chief Legal Counsel, is physically present along with Nick Kottmeyer, your Chief Administrative Officer, and there are at least one member of the committee here in the room at the meeting location. In-person attendance and public comments are permitted, and subject to attendance limitation is required to ensure the health and safety of those who attend. And that's the remainder of what my suggested recital would be.
Yes, thank you. That's what I intended to recite. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to the next order of business entitled Chairman's Remarks, followed by public comment, and then we'll get into the business of the meeting. So I just want to say good morning. Thank you all for attending this special call meeting to disperse funds received through the CARES Act in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. As you no doubt saw or witnessed yesterday and over the weekend, the developments, Congress reached an agreement on a new stimulus bill that will impact our residents moving into and throughout the year 2021. We are working diligently to learn all about the details of this federal legislation. It's a big bill, and there's a lot of language in it. We're combing through it very carefully. We know that under the proposal, the deadline for expending the coronavirus relief funds as part of the Federal CARES Act has been moved to December 31st, 2021. That's a lot of time, which is good, I think. We anticipate further guidance from federal officials as to impact of this extension, as well as further details on other aspects of the latest stimulus bill. So today we will review the requests before us and get those funds out to people in our county as soon as possible. As you know, we have been moving these funds out expeditiously, as I think is necessary and required in this climate. And our staff will continue to share information over the next few weeks. I hope as we close out the year that you are feeling as hopeful and optimistic as I am. I had the wonderful opportunity to observe the delivery of the first shipment of COVID-19 vaccine to DuPage County last week. It was an awesome experience. I was there with Sam Tornatore and Karen Ayala and others from the health department, as well as the leadership from the DuPage Medical Group. They had agreed, the DuPage Medical Group, to house the vaccine in ultra cold freezers so that the vaccine could be stored appropriately and allowing us maximum flexibility in distribution to hospitals throughout DuPage County. So we're getting word that vaccinations will soon begin for the long-term care residents and workers, which is certainly welcome news for us. Because of our DuPage Care Center. These folks over there, the people that work there, the people that live there, they've been at risk, and these are some of the most vulnerable people and seriously ill patients, as we well know. So they and all frontline workers deserve our thanks. Like you, I am eager to see the vaccine distributed as quickly and safely as possible. As we begin our meeting today, I hope you'll join me in thanking our finance staff for their outstanding work in administering the CARES Act funds over the past 8 months. Mary Catherine Wells, Katrina Holman, Jeff Martinovich, our CFO, Alex Klug, and our Guidehouse team. The auditor's office, Bob Grogan, Assistant State's Attorney Connor McCarthy, our Choose DuPage staff, and we have a volunteer review team that has done spectacular work. All of them deserve our thanks. And so those are my remarks. I'm going to move on to some commentary about public comment, if I may. As you know, public comment is the point in our meeting where we welcome people from the public to offer their thoughts to us. We're open and transparent body. We welcome citizens and taxpayers and others who want to share their ideas, thoughts, concerns with us. We do, however, have rules and for this due process. And the rule is that no single comment shall exceed 3 minutes in length, and the entirety of the public comment shall not exceed 30 minutes. We've been particularly challenged with this new procedure, this new part of public comment, this new approach, if I should say, public comment, people who seek to comment via online or an email. We welcome those, but it presents a new challenge to us simply because of the volume. As we move on to public comment, I'm informed that we have more than, I think it's up to 70 items of public comment, all advocating for the return to in-classroom learning by residents of several DuPage County public school districts. I think we as a board have spoken very clearly and succinctly about this matter in the past, and I guess I'll reiterate it here today. When it comes to school districts making decisions as to whether students attend class in person or remotely, those decisions rest squarely with each individual school superintendent, school board, and leadership team. The DuPage County Board does not have any role in these decisions. Our responsibility comes with the Public Health Department, who offers guidelines and is a resource. But the decisions as to whether or not to hold in-person teaching and learning, that is wholly and completely up to the individual school district. Some schools, as we know, have taken on the challenge, and it is a very, very awesome challenge. Some schools have done this, and they have met the challenge. They have adhered to public health guidelines. They have monitored the cases, and they have made offering in-person learning of paramount importance, and they've made that commitment. Other school districts have declined to do so at various points. These, again, are individual district decisions. As the language of these public comments are very similar, we will read as many as we can, up to 30 minutes. At that time, we will discontinue reading these comments and simply read the names of all who have expressed a similar opinion and include their submitted public comments in the minutes of this meeting. So all of these public comments will be part of the public record. We will welcome them into our meeting as we are guided by law to do so. I'm informed that there is no other public comment submitted on any other topic today. So with that understanding and with that sort of framework, if I may, I'd like to ask the state's attorney, our assistant state's attorney, Connor McCarthy, if you'd please begin to read the public comment.
First public comments from Rebecca Harpster. It's regarding leadership needed to change DCHD return to school framework. Dear DuPage County Board, please advocate for your county school districts who feel it's impossible to go against the DuPage County Health Department guidance that says schools should be remote in times of high COVID transmission. You've passed the buck and said that the power rests with each individual school district, but as our district said, quote, "We don't make it a habit to go against the advice of the health department. Please use your leadership capabilities and have the health department change their return to school framework. In-person learning should be prioritized, and in times of high transmission should be mitigated with masks, distance as much as possible, healthy hygiene, cleaning, disinfecting, screening for symptoms, and contact tracing. The health and safety of an entire generation is on your shoulders. You have the power to make change. Thank you." Next comments from Michelle Showmaker. It's regarding schools reopening. It says, please reconsider your approach and direction regarding schools reopening for in-person instruction. I reside in a district that feels strongly that they cannot go against the DuPage County direction. Please provide direction that it is indeed safe to be in school in person with the now prominent direction from the specialists worldwide. It is fact that the transmission is not happening at schools and in high school or youth sports. The entire mental health crisis and education of an entire generation of kids is in your hands. You owe it to these kids to tell the districts it is safe to be back in school and all of their activities. Do you want the rising cases of depression, isolation, or suicide on your hands? My kid's district is not leading, so I beg for your leadership now. Thank you for your time. Next comments from Liz Haywood. It's regarding return to school framework. It says, please reconsider the county's recommendation for remote learning. Because our district defers to the local health department for guidance, it has been almost a year since our kindergartner and first grader have received meaningful in-person learning. Due to the negative effects that excessive screen time had on my son, I now primarily homeschool. Despite hiring tutors and doing everything in our power to keep learning going, my children are suffering. Fortunately, I know my children will be okay because they have adequate support. I'm writing to highlight the fact that school closures have unfairly impacted the most vulnerable students, those with special needs, those with single-parent and non-English speaking households, and those with underlying mental illness. Without immediate intervention and change, school closures will continue to cause unnecessary harm to children in the county. Please do everything in your power to promote safe in-person learning at every school in this county. Thank you for your time. Next comments from Sherry Romano. It's regarding Open District 205. It says, to whom it may concern, I am begging the county board to use science and common sense to help the Board of Health make the decision to get our children back to school. The science has proven over and over that school is not a spreading event. We can safely return to school full-time while keeping our children, teachers, and staff safe. The emotional toll on these children is becoming unbearable, and the academic lags are profound. Our children's mental health is in your hands. Please help us. The next comment's from John Cushing. It states, please take, regarding in-person learning for District 205. It says, please take leadership role. This leadership role Superintendent David Morey is so obviously incapable of for District 205 in Elmhurst. Our children need to be in school. Every data point shows that schools are not super spreaders and the risk can be mitigated for teachers, staff, and our students. We may not be able to undo the damage that's already been done to our children, but we can move forward as so a lot of O's on that, so many schools around the world have successfully done. Thank you for your support. Next comments from Kate Subramanian. It's regarding public health guidelines for returning to in-person learning. It has two emojis pointing to the word action item. It says the DuPage County Board called a special meeting for Tuesday, December 22nd at 9 a.m. Please advocate for your school districts that will not go against your guidelines. Our District 205 will not go against your guidelines, and our kids are suffering greatly, mentally, physically, and academically. These kids cannot take much more. We need your action to help us. Public health is about more than just one disease such as COVID-19. A person's whole health needs to be prioritized, and our children are suffering. We have learned that this disease is not being spread in schools. Please use your leadership capabilities and have the health department change their return to school framework. In-person learning should be prioritized in times of high transmission and should be mitigated with mask, distance as much as possible, healthy hygiene, cleaning, disinfecting, screening for symptoms, and contact tracing. The health and safety of an entire generation is on your shoulders. You have the power to make change. Thank you. Next comments from Nirali Gia. It's regarding in-person school. It says our students need to be in school in person. Remote learning is not successful. Mental health issues are on the rise. Children are not vectors. I'm a physician whose pediatric colleagues that I have frequent conversations with agree that our kids need to be back in school in person 5 days a week. Please guide District 205 to change that supported plan. Our private schools are 5 days a week, fully in person with lunch and snack breaks. Why are public school students being held to a much lower standard? Teachers are essential workers just like I am. They need to be teaching in person. Our kids need to be back in person full time. Thank you. The next comment's from Rosario Paredes, Paredes. It's regarding back to school choice. It says, I believe parents must be allowed to choose if they want their children to go back to school or continue virtual learning. It must be up to the parents, not to the Department of Public Health, neither school boards. All mitigation means must become a choice as well. Mask testing or nasal saliva test or none, vaccination or not, it must become a choice. Mandates must not be allowed in a fee society. Patient-doctor relationship must not be broken. The freedom of choice must always remain available. That concludes the comment. Next comments from John Naughton. It's regarding DuPage Department of Public Health school matrix. It says, we encourage the Department of Public Health to reconsider its case-centric open school matrix criteria. No child under the age of 20 has died of COVID. Relatively few healthy people under the age of 60 have died of COVID. While these are guidelines in some school districts, are following them as the letter of the law and are not looking at the big picture of what's happening in DuPage County. Thank you. Next comments from Deepa Lale. It's regarding in-person school. It says, please consider the fact that our children are suffering not only with their education, but socially and emotionally. Also, our kids need to be in school, and the CDC and doctors agree that with the masks and proper precautions, our children and teachers are not safe at school. Please use your leadership to open our schools. Health does not only mean physical health, but mental health also. Our kids need to go to school. That concludes the comment. Next comments from Lisa Chu. It's regarding, please recommend school to return. It says, please advocate for your county school districts who feel it's impossible to go against the DuPage County Health Department guidance. It says schools should be remote in times of high COVID transmission. You've passed the buck and said the power rests with each individual school district. But as our district said, quote, we don't make it a habit to go against the advice of the health department, close quote. Please use your leadership capabilities and have the health department change their return to school framework. In-person learning should be prioritized, and in times of high transmission should be mitigated with masks, distance as much as possible, healthy hygiene, cleaning, disinfecting, screening for symptoms, and contact tracing. The health and safety of an entire generation is on your shoulders. You have the power to make change. Thank you. Next comment is from Carolyn Heflin. It's regarding our children should be in school in person immediately. It says, please advocate for our count school districts who feel it's impossible to go against the DCHD guidance that says the schools should be remote right now. You've said that the power rests with the school districts. However, our school district says, quote, they don't make a habit of going against the health department, close quote. The studies have shown that children are not likely to transmit the virus and that schools being open has not led to a rise in community spread. This is from the World Health Organization website. Their health and safety needs to be prioritized, which means being physically in the classroom. The increased rates of depression, anxiety, and suicide are becoming very apparent. I can see it in my own children. The health and safety of an entire generation is in your hands. You have the power to make this change. Please strongly consider advocating for our children and sending them back to school where they belong. Next comments from school. It's from Michael Lenarcy. It's regarding school district guidance. It says, please advocate and recommend that all schools return to in-person learning on a full-time basis. Current guidance at the county health department is conflicting with guidance at the national level, which is creating confusion for local school districts. The education of our children is essential, yet it has been completely neglected for almost a year now. The children are suffering, and there are real consequences for them in the short term and long term if this goes on. We cannot abandon our children as a society and need to respond more urgently to these needs. There are numerous examples of in-person instruction being safe, with simple protocols such as masks, distance, sanitizing, and proper hygiene. These protocols align with the CDC recommendations, which should be the guiding voices in this stage of the pandemic. The children simply cannot absorb this treatment any longer. Next comment is from Tricia Fisher. It's regarding guidance for schools. It says, I'm writing to urge this board to work with the health department to change the return to school framework. Full-time in-person learning is working in countless districts near and far and should be prioritized and deemed essential. Since April, there has been a significant amount of data showing that children and the vast majority of teachers are at virtually zero risk from an adverse event from COVID. In addition, there is little to no evidence that schools are in any way super spreader events, so the fear of the community spread is also unfounded. Most importantly, there is growing evidence of the harmful and neglected mental and health impact from continuing to isolate children via virtual schooling, increased depression, mental health issues, and suicidal thoughts. It seems that in an effort to strive for an unrealistic, risk-free situation for children and teachers, District 205 and Elmhurst has created greater unintended consequences and risks. Please do the right thing. Our children are depending on you. The next comment is from Melissa Yaroz, Y-A-R-O-Z-O-S-Z. It has several emojis pointing to the word action item for DuPage County residents. It says, please return our kids to school in person full-time for those that choose to do so. Please complete remote learning has taken its mental toll on my high school junior at Glenbard South. She's an excellent student, but she has told me how difficult it is to stay motivated, to look at a small iPad screen for 5 to 7 hours a day, and not have true interactions with teachers and students, not to mention no clubs, activities, or sports. The DuPage County Board needs to advocate for their county school districts who feel it's impossible to go against the DuPage County Health Department guidance that says schools should be remote in times of high COVID transmission. Many districts feel their hands are tied because it's not in their best interest to go against the advice of the Health Department and the DuPage County Board. Please use your leadership capabilities and have the Health Department change the return to school framework. In-person learning should be prioritized, and in times of high transmission should be mitigated with mask distance as much as possible, healthy hygiene, cleaning, disinfecting, screening for symptoms, and contact tracing. The DuPage County Board has the power to influence change. Please use it to help DuPage County students. I implore you to educate the school districts that it's okay to not only use your guidance and that your guidance is not law. It's the best interest of all students. It's in the best interest of all students to give them back full-time in person. Sincerely, Melissa Yarias. Next comment is from Heidi Martin. It's regarding back to school for District 205. It says, please advocate for your county school districts who feel it's impossible to go against the DuPage County Health Department guidance that says schools should be remote in times of high COVID transmission. You've passed the buck and said that power rests with each individual school district, but as our district said, we don't make a habit of going against the advice of the health department. Please use your leadership capabilities and have the health department change their return to school framework. In-person learning should be prioritized, and in times of high transmission should be mitigated with masks, distance as much as possible, healthy hygiene, cleaning, disinfecting, screening for symptoms, and contact tracing. The health and safety of an entire generation is on your shoulders. You have the power to make change. Thank you. Next comment is from Carrie Swenson. It's regarding DuPage County Health Department and County and Health Department COVID metrics. Dear board members, I'm asking you to urgently consider and demand that DuPage County Health Department reevaluate the metrics for returning to school. We are 10 months into this pandemic and it's time. Things change. We know more. We know the safest place for students is in school. We know that our highest numbers are not only over 60, but in long-term care facilities that pose no risk to the community. We know that with 12,250,000 plus tests taken in Illinois with a population of 12,600,000 plus. Clearly, there are multiple tests per patient in extended care, and erroneous positives. This data is dictating school attendance, and a majority of the numbers have zero to do with the school population. They directly add to the positivity rate in cases per 100,000. A person can only be a risk once and not at all while living in a care facility. Look at the other local schools, look at schools nationally. Opening up and actually makes numbers go down in communities. After 10 months, I am begging you to look at the updated expert opinions and please update your metrics. Even the director of the IDPH had her children going to school. It is safe. Schools are prepared to maintain district safety protocols. Our county health department has antiquated metrics that are preventing openings. The children in DuPage County are dying, attempting suicide, being medicated at a pace no one has seen before. Drug use, severe and acute depression, anxiety, and loss of hope, motivation, and engagement. Please support changing metrics to save this generation of children. Please, they are screaming for someone to listen and remove unattainable county metrics and keep these kids in school as soon as possible. That concludes the comment. Next comments from Andrea Medema. It's regarding return to in-person school. It says the DuPage County Board needs to advocate for their county health districts who feel it's impossible to go against the DuPage County Health Department guidance that says schools should be remote in times of high COVID transmission. Many districts feel their hands are tied because it's not in their best interest to go against the advice of the health department and the DuPage County Board. Please use your leadership capabilities and have the health department change their return to school framework. In-person learning should be prioritized, and in times of high transmission should be mitigated with mask distance as much as possible, healthy hygiene, cleaning and disinfecting, screening for symptoms, and contact tracing. The DuPage County Board has the power to influence change. Please use it to help DuPage County residents get these kids back to school in person. Next comments from Paula Duhlman. Subject is duo. The comment section is blank. Next comment is from Jen Pickering. It's regarding back to school. It says you need to get our kids back to school. There is a 0.000103% chance of them dying from COVID. So far in the United States, there are 113 deaths under the age of 19 from COVID. In the last flu pandemic, there were 477 kids under the age of 19 that died from the flu. What did we do then? Did we shut down schools and sports? No, we did not. We let our children live and be free. Enough is enough. We are in over 10 months of this nonsense. Children are not dying. They are getting a cold for 3 days. It's an infringement on their right to an education. You must open up schools full-time and in person now. Also, masks do not work. There is no scientific proof that they help slow the spread of the virus. The particles of COVID are so small that they go through a bandana that you can buy at a dollar store, a t-shirt that you have made into a mask, and a surgical mask that is not meant to prevent the spread of infectious diseases. You need to give us our freedom back. This is not America. You are infringing on all of our rights and not allowing us to be free in beings. If people are afraid they have the choice to stay in, wear a mask, and social distance, the rest of the population should be able to go about their business as they wish as a free American. Stop the madness. Next comments from Nathan Gack, GAC. It's regarding help reopen schools. It says, please use your leadership capabilities and have the health department change the return to school framework. In-person learning should be prioritized, and in times of high transition should be mitigated with mask distance as much as possible, healthy hygiene, cleaning and disinfecting, screening for symptoms, and contact tracing. That concludes his comment. Next comments from Derek Carlson. It's regarding return to school at Downers Grove South. While we all understand the world we live in at the moment, I feel that District 99 Board is not looking out for the best interest of our children. I coach baseball in town, and we've had zero issues with COVID. We wear mask, distance, and advise the team to use hand sanitizer and wash their hands as often as possible. This is the same for indoor workouts or outdoor activities. We've been doing both with great success. These children need normalcy as it's infecting them all psychologically, and there is nothing showing any reason for the remote learning. I commend districts around us for doing what's right for these kids. Explain how everyone is holiday shopping like it's 2019, but our kids are working from their bedroom, dining room table, or just struggling to connect. Their grades are failing, their mental state is at risk, and the board is showing zero signs of what's in their best interest and is failing our children. I'm not sure what back office deals are being made, but I'm sure someone with it will get a heavy conscience and let it out. It's sad and just politics over our children. Next comment, Catherine Garrity. It's regarding DuPage County Health Department needs to help reopen schools. I have done my best to respect the diverse opinions regarding COVID-19 over these past few months. However, the ER nurse that wrote this brilliantly sums up a very common train of thought. Please take politics out of it and read it with an open mind using common sense. Is there anyone out there who can tell me what our end game is with the COVID-19? What is the magic formula that's going to allow us to sound the all clear? Is it 0 cases? The only way that will happen is if we just stop testing and reporting, which ironically Obama did with the H1N1 and it went away. Is it a vaccine? It took 25 years for a chickenpox vaccine to be developed. Smallpox inoculation was discovered in 1796, and the last known natural case was 1977. We have a flu vaccine that is only 20 to 60% effective, and less than half the U.S. population choose to get one. Roughly 20,000 Americans will die of the flu or the flu complications, or it will be mandated like other vaccines are mandated in order to attend school, travel to foreign countries, etc. We already have a growing number of anti-vaxxers refusing proven, tested, and well-known vaccines that have been administered for decades but aren't necessarily safe. Do you really think people will flock to get a fast-track, quickly tested vaccine whose long-term side effects and overall efficacy are anyone's best guess? How long are we going to cancel and postpone and reconsider? You aren't doing in-person school until the second quarter or the second semester. What if January's numbers are the same as August's? IHSA moved football to spring. What if next March is worse than this one? When do we decide the quality of life outweighs the risks? I understand COVID can be deadly or very dangerous for some people, but so are peanuts, strawberries, or shellfish. We take risks multiple times a day without a second thought. We know driving a car can be dangerous, but we don't leave it in the garage. Many speed and still don't wear seatbelts. We know the dangers of smoking, drinking, and eating fried foods. We do it anyway. Is hugging grandma really more dangerous than a rush hour on the freeway? Is going out with friends after work riskier than a 4-day-old gas station sushi? Or operating a chainsaw? When and how do we so quickly lose our free will and give up our liberty? Is there a waiver somewhere that I can sign that says I understand the risks, but I choose a life with hugs and smiles and the state fair and go to church and hug my mom in her retirement home? I understand that there's a minuscule possibility that I could die, but I will most likely end up feeling like crap for a few days. I understand I could possibly pass it to someone else if I'm not careful, but I can pass any virus to somebody else. I'm struggling to see where and how it ends. We either get busy living or we get busy dying. When God decides it's your time, you don't get any mulligans. So I guess I would rather spend my time enjoying it and living in the moment and not worrying about what ifs and maybes. And I know I'm not the only one. As the song goes, we have to live like we're dying. When can our children start living again? That concludes the comment. Next comment's from Heather Bolden. It's regarding recommendation to return to in-person instruction. It says it's the DuPage County Board's responsibility to advocate for county school districts who feel it's impossible to go against the DuPage County Health Department's guidance, which states schools should be remote in times of high COVID transmission. Many districts feel their hands are tied because it's not in their best interest to go against the advice of the Health Department and the DuPage County Board. Our children are suffering from mental health issues and are lonely. This is related to health as well as the DC, and the DCHD needs to take this into consideration when offering guidance. Our children deserve a quality education, and it's for certain they are not receiving this under remote instruction. Review the latest MAP test scores, and you see the sharp drop in progress. Please use your leadership and advise the Health Department to change the return to school framework. In-person learning should be prioritized, and in times of high transmission should be mitigated with masks, distance as much as possible, healthy hygiene, cleaning and disinfecting, screening for symptoms, and contact tracing. Recommend implementing saliva tests in school, and there's a link to an NBC Nightly News video. Next comment is from John Gorman. It's regarding Need Advocate. It says, to the board asking for the DuPage County Board to advocate for their school districts who feel it's impossible to go against the DuPage County Health Department guidance that says schools should be remote in times of high COVID transmission. Many districts feel their hands are tied because it's not in their best interest to go against the advice of the Health Department and the DuPage County Board. Please use your leadership capabilities and have the Health Department change the return to school framework. In-person learning should be prioritized, and in times of high transmission should be mitigated with masks, distance as much as possible, healthy hygiene, cleaning, disinfecting, and screening for symptoms and contact tracing. The DuPage County Board has the power to influence change. Please use it to help the DuPage County students get back into school full-time as the hybrid and remote at-home models are failing our students. John Gorman, parent of DGS Jr. Next comment is from Robert Schwarink, SKWAREK. It's regarding urgent reentry of U46 students required. Hi, my daughter and son are high school students at District U46. Please consider these points in your next meeting, as my kids' freshman and senior years waste away with them learning through computers instead of in a classroom. Thank you. The DuPage County Board needs to advocate for their school districts who feel it's impossible to go against the DuPage County Health Department guidance that says schools should be remote in times of high COVID transmission. Many students feel their hands are tied because it's not in their best interest to go against the advice of the Health Department and the DuPage County Board. Please use your leadership capabilities and have the Health Department change the return to school framework. In-person learning should be prioritized, and in times of high transmission should be mitigated with masks, distance as much as possible, healthy hygiene, cleaning, disinfecting, screening for symptoms, and contact tracing. The DuPage County Board has the power to influence change. Please use it to help the DuPage County students. Regards, Bob Squarink. Next comments from Kelly Stone. It says, bring our kids back. Please bring our children back to school for at least the hybrid. They need that social interaction. It's also hard to make sure that they're still staying on task when they're on Zoom, as they can change the screen anytime. This has sure been a difficult situation I have come across on multiple occasions. I want to make sure that my children are getting the best learning experience possible. That concludes the comment. Next comment is from Beth Ann Trankina, Trankina. It's regarding return to learn. It says, DuPage County Board needs to advocate for their county school districts who feel it's impossible to go against the DuPage County Health Department guidance that says schools should be remote in times of high COVID transmission. Many districts feel their hands are tied because it's not in the best interest To go against the advice of the Health Department and the DuPage County Board, please use your leadership capabilities and have the Health Department change the return to school framework. In-person learning should be prioritized, and in times of high transmission should be mitigated with mask, distance as much as possible, healthy hygiene, cleaning and disinfecting, screening for symptoms, and contact tracing. The DuPage County Board has the power to influence change. Please use it to help DuPage County students. Next comment is from Connie Horowitz. It's regarding restructuring the DuPage County Health Department back to school metrics. It states, as a resident with children in DuPage School District 88, I'm begging you to reconsider reevaluating the current metrics you are releasing weekly to the county. Our superintendent and school board are basing their return into in-school learning solely on your recommendations. Even though there's no scientific proof the virus is being spread in school environment, my children haven't been in person since March, and their education and well-being are suffering. If something isn't done, soon we will have more children with mental health issues than ever before in the history of the United States. Next comment is from Dawn Martin. It's regarding helping school districts return to in-person education. Good morning. I'm contacting you today in hopes that the DuPage County Board can work with the DuPage County Health Department to update the guidelines for the reopening of schools. As of today, many schools have remained closed to in-person instruction since March. Students of all ages have lost out on important social and emotional development. They are struggling to learn and stay focused through the use of screens. And there has been an increase in mental health issues. Large numbers of students at the high school levels are failing, not checking in, and losing connection to the things that were helping them prepare for adulthood. All these children need our support and deserve better from school districts, the county, and the state. Please work with the DuPage County Health Department to establish guidelines that prioritize in-person learning for all students. All students should be back in at least hybrid format by mid-January, with all students returning full-time in person for the fall. States around us are accomplishing this and are proving our youth matter. It's time DuPage County and Illinois do the same. Next comment is from Jennifer Rice. It's regarding full return to school. It says, I implore you to change your metrics and follow the current screams of the CDC. Pediatricians all over the country, and do the right thing and push on getting all of our kids back into school in person full-time. Study after study are showing this age group is not at risk, and transferring the virus is not happening at a high percentage in the classrooms, in the buildings, on campus. District 205, where my children attend, 3 different schools have followed blindly to your metrics and guidelines, even though you recommend each district for themselves. Unfortunately, I fail to see that the full health for these kids being thought of during this time. You are concerned for one particular virus only. Stress has proven to be a huge health indicator in lowering immunity, activating cancer cells, and on and on. Our kids are under constant stress daily, even the ones who are doing fine. The bigger picture than our physical health right now is our mental health, and that is also triggered by stress, so much more like social isolation, poor grades and activity, uncontrolled eating. This is not going away, and likely we're just touching the surface of what this is really happening to most kids. Please do your best to fight for the whole health of our children and not on one particular virus. I believe I'm advised I've hit my 30 minutes. I don't see any in-person public comment. So that's unless there's someone wants to have me continue reading and extend for another 30
I believe that 30 minutes you've consumed 30 minutes with those comments. Please be sure to include any remaining comments in the minutes with the names of the individuals that offered those comments. We thank all the folks that reached out and shared their thoughts with us on the issues of public comment today. We move on to the next order of business.
Mr. Chairman?
I'm sorry, Mr. Zay, I didn't see you there. Please proceed.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to object to cutting off public comment. We have sat through meetings and meetings and listened to hours of public comments, and I have to disagree with your comments. The Board of Health is appointed by this board. People have nowhere else to turn but to this board when the Board of Health is not hearing these comments. I heard there was over 200 public comments at the Board of Health meeting. I don't think we hear the desperation of these parents and the calls out for the health department to relook at the metrics. I have brought it up. These people are desperate. We've heard studies, we've seen studies that these schools are not super spreaders. These people took the time to make public comment. I think we owe it to them to listen to them, and maybe this will sink into the powers that be to relook at our metrics when the numbers don't justify these schools being shut down. And I know you said it solely lies on these superintendents and these school boards, but they go back to the Board of Health, and they say if the Board of Health is objecting and saying it should be remote, then their lawyers are saying you can't go against the Board of Health. So that's the quandary we're in right now. And I think they need the time to hear this, and maybe this will sink in, and that maybe our Board of Health, who we appoint, who we hear their budget, who you have the right to veto their budget, that we've given $17 million to over this pandemic, that we should take the time to listen to these parents, hear the desperation that they have. And I'm one of them that thinks these schools should be reopened in hybrid, and take the time to listen to the rest of these public comments today.
Well, okay. I mean, I respectfully disagree with you, Member Zay, with respect to your view of the guidelines. I know that the guidelines are based on public health and CDC, and there are some schools that can comply. There are some schools, in fact, your alma mater, Jim, they're holding in-person classes both at the grade school and the high school, Timothy Christian schools. There are other public school districts and other parts of the region that are holding in-person classes. It is absolutely positively not the prerogative of the health department to direct schools as to whether or not they hold in-person learning. That is a decision. Now, whether they can make the commitment and the sacrifice that is required to do that, it's hard work, no question about it. But it can be done, and there are schools that are doing it. So to go on with this repetitive public comment that is based on data that I believe is inaccurate, I think is of very little value. But I mean, if we want to go on and continue, I'm open to it. I always am here to accommodate the will of the majority of the board members. I see Member Ozog seeking recognition.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I served for 8 years on the Glenbard District Board, and I really want to reinforce that one of our most important government relationships is the fact that we do have local school districts, okay? And this is a very challenging time for the school districts, and I have sat in those seats. But first of all, I do know that Glenbard is discussing hybrid going back in January. We are at break right now. And I wanted to talk about last week's public participation, Mr. Chairman. The first two speakers were allowed to speak for 12, 15 minutes. I don't know. I think we need to have public participation under some kind of control. I think we should discuss the 30-minute rule, because I do think we should hear more discussion depending on what the issue is. I'm going to save that for another time. But for today, these people are clearly cutting and pasting, and this is not a decision that we can make. These school boards are choosing to follow public health guidelines. We can't force the public health department to change their guidelines or to change what they're reporting under this pandemic. So I believe that today, I'd like to move that we close public participation for today. We have heard repetitive comments that are saying the same thing about something that we are not in charge of. This is an issue for school boards, and these people have been at school board meetings, I can assure you, but we are not able to do anything about this today. And I do think we need to have some discussion about our public participation starting in January. But for today, I'd like to move that we do not continue with public participation about this issue today.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second, and there may
I have a question.
who else is seeking recognition? Forgive me, I don't have everybody's screen up on my computer. Member Covert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree that, we do have a big meeting on January 12th at our next public meeting, and we have a lot of public comments lined up for that as well. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot more discussion on the issue. And I understand why we can't have public comment today. But I do want to add, I do respectfully disagree here with the comment that the county board has nothing to do with this issue. In my district, there was a rally 2 weeks ago in District 5. And what the school board, my understanding of their issue was they are dependent on the county health department's guidelines. And the county health department was saying, this is what was told to me, that they were recommending that schools be remote learning. And they said that the county public health department had recommended 100% remote learning. And that is a recommendation that is being put out by our health department. The county health department is under our purview. It is under our jurisdiction. We do decide their budget. We do make decisions for them and the appointments there. So I think we do have influence, and we do have a little bit of authority over here to communicate with the health department. But if they're going to say, and I need to confirm this with Karen Aiello and myself, if there is a written recommendation that schools go 100% remote learning, and if they are making those guidelines, my school district 204 and 203 in my area, they are wholly dependent on those guidelines. So parents are desperate. They are, especially low income single parents, low income parents, children with disabilities. It is a serious issue. It's a nonpartisan issue, and we need to understand these parents who cannot send their kids to school, and they're losing their homes, they're losing their jobs. This is a serious problem. It's not a Democrat or Republican issue, and we need to start empathizing with the people, and we need to start listening, because if we don't, these mental health issues of these children are going to get worse, and it's going to have an impact on our society in the long run, in our county in the long run. And we need to understand the damages that this is going to create. So we do need to listen to people. I understand we can't do that today, but I would like to listen to all the public comments in the January meeting. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. It appears that Member Ozog is seeking recognition. I don't know if there's any other member seeking recognition.
Krajewski. Member Chaplin.
Member Krajewski. I'd like to go to other members for a first time before I go back to a member for a second time. Member Krajewski, please proceed.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is just on the motion to cut off public comment. We've been hearing public comment for 6 months. We've been hearing hours and hours on repetitive comments. So, it's kind of hard for us to say no now on the topic, but we really need to. I mean, we've never followed our rules for the last, many months, letting people go longer than 3 minutes and going for 4 or 5 hours, whether it was Facebook posts, chicken coops, not wearing a mask at a rally, the Sterigenics issue. I mean, we went hours and hours listening to public comment, and now we're going to say no. It's kind of hard to do that. But at some point we got to say, and maybe with the rules committee is going to come back and say, we have to adhere to these rules. But we've been doing this for 6 months, going longer than our board rules. And so all my comments.
Okay, I see Member Chavez seeking recognition.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think what concerns me a little bit about this conversation is we are dealing with a health department that is looking at science, and science is finite, and we cannot influence they're looking at data, they're looking at numbers, they're looking at what's best for the health of our community. And I think what we can facilitate as a board is a better understanding of what's going to our school districts, what's helping them to make their decisions. I think we can make sure that we're as transparent as possible with the information that our school districts are getting. But I do agree that this lies with our school boards. We have our boards for a reason. I think we need to, stay in our lane as much as possible and facilitate information. But I just don't want to have any influence over science. I'm not an epidemiologist. I don't see one on here. And we need to trust the scientists and the people that are in place to keep our communities safe.
Member Chaplin.
Thank you. Anyone else seeking recognition? Member Ozog?
Member Chaplin, please.
Oh, forgive me. I can't see you. Forgive me. Please proceed, Member Chaplin. I'm sorry.
Thank you so much, Chairman. I just wanted to make one point. The DuPage County Board does not make any decisions for the DuPage County Health Department. I think that is really very important to get out to that misconception that the county board makes decisions for the health department is completely off base and wrong information. And we should not be spreading wrong information. And I agree with Member Chavez. This is a matter for doctors and scientists. We should not be, we should be going with the science and following that. And children that go to school, they may not get sick, but they bring it home and make others sick. And I don't know why it is so hard for people to understand this. So, I'm very concerned about the misinformation that is being spread in these public comments.
I don't think it does any good for anyone. Of course, they have a right to speak and spread that, but I think it's our job to make sure that we are putting out the right information and we are following the guidelines and we are following the recommendations of our health department. But again, to be clear, we do not make any decisions for the health department. That is a completely inaccurate statement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I see Member Rutledge seeking recognition.
Thank you, Chairman. I guess a little anecdotally, I would say that I fall on the side of elementary school kids going back to school. I'm not sure about high school. But I did speak yesterday with a high school teacher who's been doing the job for 25 years, and she told me that special needs children, Asperger's, a whole variety of kids that need extra work are thriving with Zoom. They're able to get more one-on-one. So I think that I just want to say that the statements that are being made today are blanket statements and do not apply to all of the students. And just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Okay. Member Ozog.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to reiterate, I noticed that Member Culvert used the word recommended at least 3 times. The school boards are choosing to follow the recommendations of our health department. First of all, we are not scientists or epidemiologists, and we have no business trying to influence in any way the recommendations of our health department, which we trust and support. And also, as I reiterated before, this is one of our most sacrosanct local government issues, that school boards are in charge. I was elected twice to the Glenbard board by 19% of the voters. So if you don't want to hear what the school board has to say for you, then you need to vote. And there will be an election this spring. But this is a school board issue. It is nothing to do with us. We can't influence, should not influence the health department, and we will certainly not be influencing school boards. So for us to continue listening to this issue, which is completely beyond our influence or our any recommendations that we can make, is really a waste of our time and any citizens who are joining us today, because this is not an issue of ours. Chicken, all sorts of other issues we've dealt with in the past 6-8 months are our issues, but this is not. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the table, and if I may just offer a little perspective, our obligation is to comply with Illinois law, Open Meetings Act, to give the public an opportunity to offer thoughts and concerns. We have done that. We also will include all further remarks in the minutes of our meeting. The position and the message that these folks from District 205 and other school districts, they've conveyed that message. The concern that I have, Member Zay, is that we have a responsibility to lead government, and we have to recognize that the health department is a separate, independent unit of government, and they are guided by objective criteria. They are offering guidelines. Here's what the guidelines are. Here's what our recommendations are given this, that, and the other. That is their job. I am not going to try to influence that with politics. I know for a fact, because we have empirical data, that there are school districts that are working with the health department, and they are doing in-person learning in an award-winning way. Now, it's hard. You got to put plexiglass up. You have to test the kids coming into school. That's a very, very burdensome responsibility to take on. But some school districts have made it of paramount importance, and they have stepped up and they're doing it. So I am not going to enter into the middle of this decision-making process. I think it's folly for us to even attempt to do so, because it is not within our purview. I'm going to respect the boundaries of authority and the units of government that have been charged with this, duly elected folks. If they think the guidelines and the recommendations are too overwhelming, too difficult, they can't do it. They can't overcome. They can't contain, they can't keep their teachers safe, that's their decision. I'm not condemning them for it. I'm just saying that's their decision. And for us to go on to try to influence the health department politically because we're going to listen to another hour and a half of the same folks that are rather misguided in their thinking, I think is not a good thing for us to do, and it's irresponsible. So with that, I will entertain the motion and the second by Member Ozog, seconded by Member Desart, to confine the remarks to what we have already done, which I think is quite generous for 30 minutes, and to include all the remaining remarks in the minutes. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Ozog.
Yes.
Pachowski. Renahan.
No.
Rutledge. Schwarzy.
Aye.
Selman.
Aye.
Tornatore. I'm sorry, Tornatore.
Aye.
Zay.
No.
Chaplin. Chavez.
Aye.
Covert.
No.
Desart.
Aye.
DeCiani. Eckhoff.
No.
Garcia.
Aye.
Hart. Krajewski.
No.
LaPlante.
Aye.
Mr. Clerk, I wasn't keeping score. What is the, what's the roll call?
11 voting aye, 5 voting nay.
Okay, so the motion carries. The public comment we will conclude, and we'll move on to the next order of business entitled consent. Is there a motion on the items under the agenda of consent? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Got it again. Selman.
Aye.
Tornatore.
Aye.
Zay.
Aye.
Chaplin. Chavez.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart.
Aye.
DeCiani. Eckhoff.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Hart. Krajewski.
Aye.
LaPlante.
Aye.
Ozog.
Aye.
Pachowski. Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge. And Schwarzy.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clerk. On to the order of finance. Member Liz Chaplin.
Thank you, Chairman. And if you don't mind today, if I stay seated so I can talk directly into the microphone so everyone can hear me?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, thank you. So I will move to approve FIROO 4421 resolution, approval of the issuance of payments to small businesses and independent contractors through the Small Business Relief Grant Fund program administered by Choose DuPage in the amount of $2,462,319. This is a COVID item.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second by Member Desart. Is there any discussion? And if you want to discuss the matter, please seek attention verbally, if you would, because I can't see who's holding up their hand right now. Anyone?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Member Chavez.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention that this particular item was a Herculean task by Choose DuPage, and I think that they should get some recognition on this item because so many volunteer hours went into reviewing all these applications. And you mentioned it briefly at the start of our meeting, but I think I really want to thank the members of this committee, all those that gave of their time to make sure that these businesses in our small community or in our community small businesses received the money that they need to get through this. And we just couldn't have done it without them and their volunteer hours. So I think it was just a wonderful effort and shows what we can do within the county. So I'd like to thank them.
Thank you, Member Chavez. Anyone else seeking recognition? Member Chaplin to close.
That's all. We can take the
Okay.
vote.
So there's been a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, Mr. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart.
Aye.
DeCiani. Eckhoff.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Hart. Krajewski.
Aye.
LaPlante.
Aye.
Ozog.
Aye.
Pachowski. Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge. Schwarzy.
Aye.
Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori.
Aye.
And Zay.
Aye.
Okay, the resolution is adopted. Member Chaplin.
Thank you, Chairman. I will move approval of FIR 004521, resolution approval of Fourth Amendment to agreement with Choose DuPage to administer the DuPage County COVID-19 Small Business Relief Fund COVID item.
Second Desart.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Mr. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart.
Aye.
DeCiani. Eckhoff.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Hart. Krajewski.
Aye.
LaPlante.
Aye.
Ozog.
Aye.
Pachowski. Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge. Schwarzy.
Aye.
Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori.
Aye.
And Zay.
Aye.
Okay, the resolution is adopted. Member Chaplin.
Thank you, Chairman. I move approval of FIR 004621, resolution temporary revision to the Personnel Policy Manual 5.4, sick time. This is a COVID item. This is flexibility with sick time, which expires 12/31 of this year, and we're extending it through March 30th of 2021.
Second Desart.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Mr. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart.
Aye.
DeCiani. Eckhoff.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Hart. Krajewski.
Aye.
LaPlante.
Aye.
Ozog.
Aye.
Pachowski. Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge. Schwarzy.
Aye.
Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori.
Aye.
And Zay.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Member Chaplin.
Thank you, Chairman. I move approval of FIR 004721, resolution, recommendation for the approval of a payment to the City of Wooddale for the supplemental reimbursement of COVID-19 eligible expenses from the CRF fund for a total amount of $75,507.46.
Second Salmon.
Been a motion and a second by Member Salmon. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart.
Aye.
DeCiani. Eckhoff.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Hart. Krajewski.
Aye.
LaPlante.
Aye.
Ozog.
Aye.
Pachowski. Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge. Schwarzy.
Aye.
Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori.
Aye.
And Zay.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Member Chaplin.
Thank you, Chairman. I move approval on FIR 004821, resolution, recommendation of the approval of a payment to the Village of Itasca for the supplemental reimbursement of COVID-19 eligible expenses from the CRF fund for a total amount of $23,724.78. This is
Second Salmon.
Been a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart.
Aye.
DeCiani. Eckhoff.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Hart. Krajewski.
Aye.
LaPlante.
Aye.
Ozog.
Aye.
Pachowski. Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge. Schwarzy.
Aye.
Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori.
Aye.
And Zay.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Member Chaplin.
Thank you, Chairman. I move approval on FIR 0049-21, ratification of emergency procurement of goods and services, total amount $352,174.
Second Desart.
And a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart.
Aye.
DeCiani. Eckhoff.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Hart. Krajewski.
Aye.
LaPlante.
Aye.
Ozog.
Aye.
Pachowski. Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge. Schwarzy.
Aye.
Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori.
Aye.
And Zay.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clerk. Member Chaplin?
Thank you, Chairman. I move approval of FIR 005021, resolution recommendation for the approval of payment to York Township for the supplemental reimbursement of COVID-19 eligible expenses from the CRF fund for a total amount of $4,009.56.
Second Desart.
Been a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart.
Aye.
DeCiani. Eckhoff.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Hart. Krajewski.
Aye.
LaPlante.
Aye.
Ozog.
Aye.
Pachowski. Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge. Schwarzy.
Aye.
Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clerk. Member
Sorry.
Chaplin?
Oh, sorry. Tornatori, I didn't hear your vote.
Sorry about that.
And Zay.
Aye. Aye,
Got it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clerk. Member Chaplin?
Thank you, Chairman. I move approval of FIR 0051-21, resolution recommendation for the approval of a $5,000 payment to each of the 9 townships of DuPage County for the purchase of diapers, formula, and PPE for a total amount of $45,000. This is a COVID item.
Second Desart.
Been a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart.
Aye.
DeCiani. Eckhoff.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Hart. Krajewski.
Aye.
LaPlante.
Aye.
Ozog.
Aye.
Pachowski. Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge. Schwarzy.
Aye.
Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori.
aye.
And Zay.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clerk. Member Chaplin?
Thank you, Chairman. I move approval of FIR 0052-21, resolution approving an agreement with Western DuPage Special Recreation Association for COVID-19 eligible expenses from the CRF fund in the amount of $9,977.74.
Second Desart.
Been a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart.
Aye.
DeCiani. Eckhoff.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Hart. Krajewski.
Aye.
LaPlante.
Aye.
Ozog.
Aye.
Pachowski. Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge. Schwarzy.
Aye.
Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori.
Aye.
And Zay.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clerk. Member Chaplin?
Thank you, Chairman. I move approval of FIR 0053-21, resolution recommendation for the approval of a payment to the DuPage County Health Department for reimbursement of COVID-19 eligible expenses from the CRF fund for a total amount of $4,025,049.32.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart.
Aye.
DeCiani. Eckhoff.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Hart. Krajewski.
Aye.
LaPlante.
Aye.
Ozog.
Aye.
Pachowski. Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge. Schwarzy.
Aye.
Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori.
Aye.
And Zay.
Aye.
Okay, the resolution is adopted. Member Chaplin?
Thank you, Chairman. And finally, I move approval of FIR 005421, Resolution, Budget Transfers 12/22/2020, Budget Transfers, various companies and accounting units, COVID item.
Second to start.
It's been a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart.
Aye.
DeCiani. Eckhoff.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Hart. Krajewski.
Aye.
LaPlante.
Aye.
Ozog.
Aye.
Pachowski. Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge. Schwarzy.
Aye.
Selman.
Aye.
Tornatore.
Aye.
And Zay.
Aye.
Resolution is adopted. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Thank you, Member Liz Chaplin. A fine report. On to the next order of business entitled Old Business. Old Business. Is anyone seeking recognition on the order of Old Business? And if you are, please make yourself known verbally.
Member Stallman, please, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Member Selma, please proceed.
Thank you. Not to revisit our conversation, but someone had brought up that, yes, we're going to have an ad hoc committee on the board rules. And so if there are items like the timing of our public comment or things that have been rolling around in your head and you wish that it would get addressed, please feel free to send me an email between now and our first meeting will be January 12th. If anyone needs a copy of the rules just to review and spend some quality time with a red pen over the holidays, let me know. I'm happy to send that along. We want this to be sort of a collaborative, bring all your best ideas process. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No, you're welcome. And on that note, I welcome it, and I may have a suggestion or two as well. When it comes to public comment, I would gladly delegate the responsibility to any member of the board who wants to cut off somebody like Mrs. Rugg or someone else. I would gladly do that. Sometimes when you're presiding over these meetings, it's a judgment call, and folks, all they really want to do is come to the meeting and make their voices known, and sometimes you just have to kind of feel it out. But I mean, if we want to go to a hard and fast rule and shut people down after 3 minutes, I think that invites problems, but there'll be time and a place for that discussion later. I do see Member Renahan seeking recognition.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As far as old business goes, I just want to thank all the parents and of kids that came out to speak today. I voted no against holding comment just because I agree with Member Krajewski. We have heard so much public comment, whether it be, the Sterigenics thing or face masks or, numerous things. And I think if we start to cut things off based on substance, I think we risk abusing the rule. And so, Member Selman, I appreciate that because my suggestion would be for the Rules Committee to address how we do this public comment, especially while we're during this executive order. And I also just wanted to say, substantively, and to address, with the parents' concerns on getting kids back to school. I mean, there's nothing more important than our kids and our families, right? And I think there's just a misconception or some confusion about how the Board of Health is separate to some degree from, we don't have the jurisdiction to set the rules for them. And so I think from a county perspective, if we could put something out just to educate people, I think it would do people a favor. It would do our, this county board a favor. And, just let's let people know the way the rules go. That's all.
Anyone else seeking recognition on the order of old business?
Member Covert.
Member Covert, please proceed.
Thank you. No, I agree with Member Ranahan. Excellent points. I think there is a little bit of confusion out there, and we need to be clear as what the role of the county health department is. Because a lot of parents are coming to me and saying that, well, the county health department, they're in charge of people's health, and they're not there to make rules or recommendations for schools or legislate schools or how they operate. And they don't understand why statements are being made to have schools go remote learning or in person or hybrid or whatever the case is. And if that's the case, their perspective is that the health department should not make any statements pertaining to how schools operate. That should only be for the school boards. So when you go to the school boards say, well, it's it's the county health department. And then parents come to us and we're like, no, it's not the county health department. So we need to just listen to these parents and see, see where they're coming from and what relief we can possibly provide or help with, at least, because they don't know where to go. And it's really important to listen to them. So that's it. Thanks.
Member Dessart?
Member Dessart, please proceed.
Thank you. I just wanted to share with this board my concerns about the CARES Act money. Back in April, we got the federal government released $2 trillion in CARES Act funding, and DuPage County was lucky enough to receive over $161 million of that to help so many people in our county, businesses, health departments, PPE. We helped so many people, and I congratulate this board for doing that. What concerns me moving forward is that the new stimulus package is only $900 billion, and the state, municipals, local governments are not getting any of that. There is money for transportation, there is money for homeless housing, but we're not going to see the big paycheck that we received in April. So moving forward, I did vote for all of the resolutions today, releasing those CARES Act money, those CARES Act dollars, and I do believe the new administration coming in January may prompt a new, I know you hate this word, Julie, a more robust stimulus package, so we maybe see more money down the line. But I want to just share my concerns that I'd like to really hang on to the money left in our kitty, since we now have a full year, another year to spend these dollars on homelessness and on food banks and food pantries. Thank you.
Very good.
Mr. Chairman, Sam Tornatore.
Please proceed, Sam.
I refrain from commenting on the motion regarding public comment because I quite frankly was conflicted, given the fact that we have gone beyond the 30 minutes in past meetings. But I will tell you that at our last Board of Health meeting, for the new members, I serve as the president of the Board of Health, as well as a member of this board. We had over 225 public comments at our last Board of Health meeting. About 200 of them dealt with this very issue. They were cut and paste. We listened to all of them because we were advised by the state's attorney that we should, because we didn't have anything in the health department rules regarding a 30-minute limit. Also, in 1944, the health department was created by referendum. It was not created from the DuPage County Board, but a referendum of voters. It stands as an independent body. And while there has always been a synergy with the county board, to suggest that this board has any control over the health department is just not within the rules. Further, the suggestion that the health department isn't listening or empathetic to what's going on, I would just merely point out we listened to 225 public comments a couple of Thursdays ago. Further, to suggest that school boards are dependent on the health department, again, is a misstatement of what the facts are. The health department makes recommendations, just like your doctor does. When your doctor tells you, don't eat too much red meat, exercise every day, and keep your alcohol intake to a minimum. And the fact that we don't or do has very little to do with the doctor, but our own choices. Just as whether or not to be in person or hybrid is a choice made by the parents, the school boards, and the superintendents of the districts in question. To blame the health department, these people who have worked 24/7 for the last 9 months and have killed themselves every day to keep us healthy, and suggest that they don't have empathy or to suggest that they're not listening is the height of untruth, the height of hypocrisy, and aggravates me to no end. Quite frankly, to demonize the health department is a total abrogation of what we do as a county health department. To suggest that the chairman has a veto over the budget or we appoint the health department is political. It is entirely political to the health department, which is about an apolitical board as you're going to find in this county. And if the health department board has to worry about whether or not this board is going to approve a budget or get people appointed to it because they do or don't make recommendations because people in District 5, parents in District 5, or particular county board members want them to vote a certain way, you're going to have a mass exodus of that board, and I'll be the first one leading out the door. Now, you know what? It's time for all of us to realize we've got some problems with the pandemic. It's obvious. And the people who are continuing to talk to us about wanting to not make this political are doing the very opposite, making it political. Go to your school board meetings. Talk to your superintendent. They're the ones who have the decisions. The DuPage County Health Department uses their metrics from CDC, metrics from IDPH, and metrics from the general public health community to make a recommendation. At that point, the decision to send your kids to school, keep them home, have a school district open or closed is entirely with parents and superintendents and school boards. To blame the health department is just misguided. And quite frankly, as the president of the board of the health, I am going to have their backs at every step. These people have worked very, very hard. They are taking shots every day from people, whether they be on this board or whether they're parents, criticizing what they do. And let me tell you, last Wednesday, when we opened up those 13,650 vials at DuPage County, at the DuPage, I can't think of the name. I lost my train of thought. Medical group. It was almost like waiting after 9 months of having a baby, because we opened those boxes, we saw a green light, and that meant that those vials were working. The people there were excited. The nurses, the doctors were excited. Karen Aiello was beside herself excited, because now we had the first glimpse of the end of the tunnel, and that light at the end of the tunnel wasn't the train. So, you know what? Let's take a step back. Let's look at what the health department does. Let's support the health department and what they do. And we can do that and still understand that kids should be in school. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't. That's an individual decision. It's probably best for those kids to be in school. But in the meantime, it may be safest for them not to be. And that's the suggestion from public health. Remember, this is public health. These are not politicians. These are not school board people. These are not people who are parents of kids, although they may be, but they're there to act in the public health best interest, and that's what they're doing. And I hope we can respect that. And I wish you all a happy holiday.
Very well said, Member Tornatore. Anyone else seeking recognition?
Member Zay.
Of old business, Member Zay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I think we got off point here. The public comments were about the health department and kids going back to school. Our vote was, and everybody talks about what other boards they were on and what else they did. I can tell you, from being on this board over 21 years, this is the first time this county board has ever voted to limit public comment to 30 minutes in 21 years I've been here. That's what it was about. When I hear members and the chairman say people are misguided and have wrong beliefs, what we did today was took their right away for their words to be heard in our meeting. That's all we were asking for. Like it's been pointed out, we have sat in the last 6 months and listened to hours and hours and hours. One time we limited it after we had sat there at 1:30, we limited public comment. We finally said, is that enough? After listening for almost 4 hours. This is what it was about. It was about limiting people's right to speak. That's all it was. And if we're going to change that, and all of a sudden, like you had said, Mrs. Rugg has nothing to do with us in the county. I've listened to her for 3-4 years now that she's incorporated Itasca. Well, we listen because she has her concerns. She's passionate. Obviously, it bothers her. But when government stops listening to its people, that's a sad day. And that's what it was about today. Nobody said they didn't support it. We asked the health department to look at the metrics, look at what the parents are saying. Nobody said you had to do this. They're not elected, as we said. They are appointed by this board. So maybe people thought by turning to us, we have some kind of power. We don't. But the point was limiting public comment today. That wasn't about the health department's doing a bad job, not doing their job, not doing anything. It was basically about public comment and limiting those people from having their words read into the record today. And that's what it was about. And that's, like I said, the first time in 21 years we've ever limited it after 30 minutes.
Okay, I'll tell you what, Member Zay. I will entertain a motion from a board member with leave of the body. We can go back to public comment, and I'm more than happy to sit here and listen to the remaining remarks. I'm more than happy. I'll make that offer. I'm getting mixed signals here. Some folks are offended that I don't shut down public comment sooner. Some folks, we never abide by the 3-minute rule. Why does he start today? You guys are going to take up this matter in the rules. So I welcome all of that. You try to make the best judgment as you can, given each set of circumstances. So I will be willing to entertain a motion with to seek leave of the body, to go back to public comment, and to let the state's attorney read in the remaining remarks. And I'm more than happy to do that. I wouldn't want to do something that hasn't been done in your 21 years, Jim. Member Ozog.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to point out that, first of all, the chairman did request the rest of these comments will be read into the minutes, so they are available to us. I think it was pretty obvious that they were very much cut and paste, saying something. But I think what's the different issue here, and I think Mr. Zay may want to maybe discuss this a little further, but I think this was one particular instance where we have no say over this particular issue. And I think that the public who are writing or were talking to us today are thinking that we can influence the health department, that we can influence school boards. And I will assure you that these people are showing up en masse at their school board meetings. And that is where these decisions are made. These are recommendations from our health department based on, as Member Chavez talked about, science. And if they choose to not follow it, and some schools, there are grade schools that are going to school, they have a different population, et cetera. So this is all a lot of moving parts. But the point here today is that we have nothing to do with influencing the school board and nothing to do with influencing the health department. So I think the fact that these are being read into the record, and frankly, the cut and paste nature of them, this is outside of our purview. So today, I think that we made the right decision to change how we've dealt with this particular public issue. Thank you.
Further discussion, Member Grant Eckhoff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to get into the discussion about the rules. Since I'm on the Rules Committee, I'll be able to do that later. But I would like to ask, we get a daily briefing about COVID from the health department. And I know when I asked Dennis to add the chief judge and the court administrator on that daily briefing, they found it very helpful. And I didn't know, maybe Sam knows, whether or not we can add school districts or superintendents to that, because I think it would be helpful to everyone to have more information about COVID-19, what the survivability rate is, what the number of beds are, what the ages of people that are dying from it are. And it might put a perspective on that for the school districts to see the different categories. And one of our jobs, and I'm sure everybody who's been an elected official before, and for those who haven't been, one of your biggest jobs is to educate the public as to what you do and what other people do. I had some guy, when I was shoveling my walk one time, slam on his brakes, back up, and yell out of the car, "Are you Grant Eckhoff?" I immediately wanted to hide behind a rock because I thought he was going to shoot me. But I said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "Oh, we got to do something about those schools." And no clue that, I just said, "Oh, thank you." And luckily he went on, don't know who that was, never met him again. But you're always going to be educating the public. And when you get done thinking that you educated the last person to educate, you're going to have to do it all over again. So we got to educate the public about what we do, the public health department. But if the health department could educate maybe some of the school districts by cluing them in or including them in and that daily briefing, I think would be a big help. Thanks.
Anyone else seeking recognition? I see Member Tornatore. Before I go back to you, Sam, is there anyone else? Please make yourself known verbally. Hearing
Krajewski, just briefly.
Member Krajewski, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for the Rules Committee, again, I also voted no just because we've been doing it for a long time. I've been on the board 10 years, and we've had numerous people come in front of us to discuss an issue that has nothing to do with the county board, but they come to us just looking for guidance. As Member Zay pointed out, Mrs. Rugg is in the village of Itasca. It's an Itasca issue, but she constantly comes in. So I hope we're not going to go down the path where we're limiting residents' comments to only what applies directly to our county board, because we do get people who come in because a municipality isn't doing what they want to, and they look for us for guidance or help, or and they'd like to make a public comment. So I sure hope we're not going down a path where we're going to cut off public comment to people who address us on issues that don't pertain to our board, because we do get a lot of them, at least in my 10 years. We've had a lot of people who come in that give us a public comment that has nothing to do with what our job is. So I hope we just don't go down that path. Thank you.
Well, member Krajewski, I use Mrs. Rugg as an illustration of our patience in the chairman's willingness to listen beyond the 3 minutes.
No, this was directed because Member Zay had mentioned that Mrs. Ruggs from Itasca, and it's an Itasca issue. I'm not addressing the cutting off 3 minutes. I know that's a very difficult thing to let somebody finish up, and you do a pretty good job of saying, please finish up your remarks, come to a close. You succeeded.
But I will delegate that responsibility to member Krajewski. Maybe you can handle it.
No, you do a very good job with that, Dan. You do tell people to wrap up your comments and say, you're over your 3 minutes. So you've done that, hey, you're over your 3 minutes, wrap it up, please. And you've done a very good job giving leeway to that.
Thank you. Anyone else seeking recognition other than member Tornatore? Please make yourself known. I don't hear anyone. So,
Chairman.
Forgive me. I'm sorry. Please.
Thank you. I just want to point out that we are in extraordinary times, and because of the governor's ruling on having virtual meetings, and we've changed our rules intrinsically because we now have virtual public participation, which we did not have before. So if you think about it, we were limited really to whoever could be at the county board. And now that we've had this change with these virtual meetings and virtual public participation, theoretically, we could have 2,500 public participation.
Yeah.
So we do need, and Member Selman, I think this is definitely something we're going to be talking about. We need to come up with at least guidelines, if not actual rules, about how we're going to handle this. And so perhaps we can come up with, in a case where there are X number and a beyond, they become part of our minutes, and then it's obviously available to the board members. So we're in different times right now in terms of limiting our public participation, because we have theoretically so much more of it, and we've seen that in some of our various meetings in the past 6 months, various issues, et cetera. So, Member Salmon, let's definitely hope to have this on our, at least sort of emergency rules about how we do this for the next 6 to 10 months until the governor's order is lifted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please. Member Chavez, is that?
I want to shift gears a little, so I don't want to stop this train of thought if anyone has further comment on this, but I do have new old business on a different topic.
Well, I think Member Tornatore was seeking recognition on the same subject matter, so why don't we go to Sam, and then we'll get back to you, Member Chavez.
Perfect.
Please, Member Tornatore.
I was. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to Mr. Chairman, Don Pachalski.
Oh, okay. Yes. Member Tornatore, followed by Pachalski, and then we'll go back to Amy.
Mr. Chairman, again, I never want to stifle public comment, and I certainly don't want to start doing that today. Although, quite frankly, everything that we heard today, I've already heard. But with that, I am happy to move that we reopen public comment and make a motion to that effect to continue it today. But with this caveat that everybody who's at this meeting stay on this meeting and listen to what's being said and not go do anything else. So you can actually hear the thought that's gone into some of this public comment, because I think you'll see that much of it is the same and worded exactly the same way. And perhaps we may or may not have better things to do with our time, but if people have taken the time to send this in, whether it's a cut and paste or not, perhaps we can listen to them. So I'm happy to sit here for as long as it takes to listen to the people, say what they need to say, and I move that we reopen public comment.
Okay, there's been a motion to reopen with leave of the body. There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Member Zay. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Chairman,
on this motion? Okay, Don, I'm sorry. On the motion, are you going to speak to this motion right now?
yes, because I think we need to exercise discretion. I think that's the key. And one of the things we do is at 3 minutes, and I think you do that well. Obviously, when somebody's on point, pertinent, and not rambling, and sometimes you can't do something in 3 minutes. And if I have 100 people that all send in the same exact public comment, I think, yes, they should be acknowledged. And if it's the same category, substance that was there before, I think that fulfills the requirement of public comment. Anybody can come here and publicly comment on anything. I don't care what it is, if it's relevant to county business or not. But I think there's an aspect of discretion as far as whether a person should get more than 3 minutes if it's something that's pertinent and it's not rambling, and whether or not it's been covered 100 times. I could tell you that if you tell me, Connor McCarthy, that we have 42 emails that are basically all saying the exact same thing that we've already heard, then read those names in, indicate what their category was, and we go from there. But I don't have a problem sitting here. Last time, I wanted to read all of those that we cut off because I think they had entitlement to it. But I think there's this aspect of discretion which I think needs to be incorporated. Mr. Chairman, you've done a great job with that. Thank you.
Further discussion? Anyone else? Member Chaplin.
Yeah, just Member Chaplin, really quick. And I'd like to reiterate what Member Tornatore said. I think if we're going to listen to public comment, I think cameras should stay on, because those cameras during public comment, people disappear and they don't list. They're gone. They're off camera. So if we're going to listen to public comment right now, I think everyone should leave their camera on and be present. So, and I am more than willing to listen to them. Thank you very much.
Anyone else seeking recognition? Anyone else?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Hey.
Just to comment, Member Chaplin, this is your first meeting since March at the county. You've been on Zoom since then, which is great.
And I've stayed on for public comment every time.
Okay, well, that's fine. Just because somebody turns their camera off doesn't mean they've left.
Well,
I mean, that's fine, but I've got no problem keeping my camera on.
Okay, I'm going to call on Member Chavez before we take a roll call on this motion. Member Chavez, you want to share your thought at this time, or do you want to wait?
It may be more appropriate to go forward with the vote because mine is off topic.
Okay, so thank you. So if I may, I'm going to take a little liberty here. Just for the record here, I was never seeking to cut off public comment. I thought that we had comported with and complied with the rules and the law. It's about due process. It's about open meetings. I've consulted the state's attorney. We've talked at length about how to handle online comments when people have the liberty of bombing us with hundreds of these comments. And so is it our obligation to sit and read hundreds of them for maybe 8 hours in the future? No, I think it's perfectly appropriate for us to implement some sort of management approach to it. And today we were going to try to manage this a little better. You're going to take it up more formally when you discuss the rules, and I welcome that. But also, please, for the record, it was never my intent to cut the comment off because I don't want to hear more comment. I actually believe that entertaining all of this, when we've made our point repeatedly clear about the responsibility of the public health department, during this pandemic, during this vitally important period of time when lines of authority and responsibility and obligation and public health guidelines are so important, I don't want to participate in some effort to blur those lines and to introduce politics in the name of public comment. We're going to beat these people up, and they have the appointment authority, and they have the authority to approve budgets. I'm sorry. Like Sam Tornatore, I am going to back the public health department 100%, and I'm going to recognize school districts that make decisions to go to school and not condemn the ones that decide not to. That's the way it all sort of lines up. So thank you for indulging me and letting me share those thoughts with you. For the record, we have a motion and a second to seek leave of the body to go back to public comment and to read into the record the remaining email messages that were submitted to us. Mr. Clerk, please call.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. I needed to interrupt because I don't know if that motion has been amended to include Member Chaplin's recommendation and also Member Pachalski's recommendation with cameras being on. I guess unless somebody has to go to the restroom, and also what Member Pachalski mentioned is of reading names into the record if they are cut and paste or very similar, and reading the names into the record instead of reading the entire email. So I don't know if we want to.
He'll do the best he can. We'll try to get as much of this information in as we can. I think, okay. Thank you, Member Covert. That's very helpful. I appreciate that. Anyone else seeking recognition on the motion? Okay, there's a motion and a second to go back to public comment. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Tornatore.
Aye.
Zay. Zay.
Aye.
Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart.
Nay.
DeCiani. Eckhoff.
Aye.
Garcia.
Nay.
Hart. Krajewski.
Aye.
LaPlante.
Aye.
Ozog.
No.
Pachalski. Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge. Schwarzy. And Selman.
No.
Okay, it sounds like there was enough votes to take leave of the body and return to public comments. So I ask Mr. McCarthy, would you please pick up where you left off?
I'm sorry, Chairman, could we clarify if the intent now is that we're going to continue reading comments, or as Member Pachalski suggested, just reading the names of those who sent similar messages?
Well, I mean, whose motion is it here? I would ask the movement, Mr. Tornatore and Mr. Zay, what is your intent here?
Chairman, my motion was to resume public comment. I'm not so sure that, and I'll defer to Member McCarthy, but if we're going to cut off, if we're going to conclude public comment, then presumably we can read the names of those people who sent in their emails, but I'm not so sure that continuing public comment by just reading the names meets the criteria. So my motion is to resume public comment.
Member Tornatore, based upon that and also based upon the Open Meetings Act, it would be my advice that I just read everything that's been submitted as if it were normal public comment. I won't be truncating anything.
There you go.
Okay, I concur. That's worth.
Shall I proceed, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please proceed.
Part 2. Brandy Mintz is the next comment. It's return to school metrics. It says, I am begging you to reconsider your recommendation to have children return to school, especially the elementary age. Our school board and superintendent is hiding behind your recommendation to not let kids return to school, all while school districts around us have returned and are going safely. Our kids are suffering and need to be back in school. It can be done safely, and we desperately need your help. That concludes our comment. Next comment's from Joanna Zielinska, Zielinska. It's regarding U46 schools closed. It says, I am a parent of 3 boys aged 7 to 13, all attending U46 school district. The DuPage County Board needs to advocate for change in the DuPage County Health Department return to school framework. Our U46 school district feels it is impossible to go against the DuPage County Health Department guidance that says schools should be remote in times of high COVID transmission. My sons are miserable at the edge of depression with no motivation to do e-learning anymore. Please help U46 parents and advocate for change and return to school framework. I am deeply concerned about my kids' mental health as well as the quality of education they are receiving online. Kids need to be back in school. Help us, please. Next comment is from Kathy Stopka, Stopka. It's regarding back to school. It says, the DuPage County Board needs to advocate for the county school districts who feel it's impossible to go against the DuPage County Health Department guidance that says schools should be remote in times of high COVID transmission. Many districts feel their hands are tied because it's not in their best interest to go against the advice of the Health Department and the DuPage County Board. Please use your leadership capabilities and have the Health Department change their return to school framework. In-person learning should be prioritized, and in times of high transmission should be mitigated with mask, distance as much as possible, healthy hygiene, cleaning, disinfecting, screening for symptoms, and contact tracing. The DuPage County Board has the power to influence change. Please use it to help DuPage County students. Next comments from Tracy Driscoll. It's regarding help students get back to school. It says, The DuPage County Board needs to advocate for their county school districts who feel it is impossible to go against the DuPage County Health Department guidance that says schools should be remote in times of high COVID transmission. Many districts feel their hands are tied because it is not in their best interest to go against the advice of the Health Department and the DuPage County Board. Please use your leadership capabilities and have the DuPage Health Department change their return to school framework. In-person learning should be prioritized, and in times of high transmission should be mitigated with mask, distance as much as possible, healthy hygiene, cleaning, disinfecting, screening for symptoms, and contact tracing. Next comment is from Rachel Vecchio, VECCHIO. It's regarding please advise schools to reopen. It states, as a resident of Elmhurst, my child had only 10 days of in-person learning this year. Due to this, my child has had many mental breakdowns. A 6-year-old needs to be around other children rather than in a room by themselves looking at an iPad for 5 hours a day. I worry about the long-term effects of this type of learning. Our school districts have said they only follow the DuPage County Health Department's recommendations, even though Dr. Fauci has said that children need to be in school. I implore you to recommend a full return to in-person schooling immediately. The science supports it. We just need the health department's support. Please follow Dr. Fauci's advice and do what's right for our children. Next comment is from Christine Miliani, Milani. It's regarding return to school. It says it's imperative that our children return to school. Their mental health is suffering. Please use your leadership capabilities and have the health department change their return to school framework. In-person learning should be prioritized, and in times of high transmission should be mitigated with mask, distance as much as possible, healthy hygiene, cleaning and disinfecting, screening for symptoms, and contact tracing. This has been done all over the country, and we are grossly lagging and failing our children. The DuPage County Board has a power to influence change. Please use it to help DuPage and surrounding schools get back in person. Next comments from Tracy Check, CZECH. It's regarding return to learn guidance. Please change your return to learn guidance to say the default position should be students have in-person learning at all grade levels, junior and high school included. Based upon your current guidance, Naperville CUSD 203 administration and Board of Education are paralyzed and fearful to the point of inaction. They have refused to allow students in for in-person learning since March. Our children are going on almost a full year of e-learning, and CUSD 203 and board are blaming the DCHD guidance is forcing them to remain remote when neighboring DuPage County districts are making in-person learning happen safely. Please change your guidance to recommend or mandate in-person learning. The children are suffering academically, socially, and emotionally. This is a travesty, and the history will look back on it in shame and disgrace. I think please think of the children first and change your guidance to recommend or mandate in-person learning regardless of countywide metrics. Next comments from Gene Hogan. It's regarding change your return to school framework. Good evening. Despite your statements that the decision to open schools relies with the district superintendents and Board of Education, they cannot go against the guidance of the health department. The DuPage County Board of Health website is the only place in the United States where remote learning is recommended. Every expert and every study shows that evidence that schools are safe and that kids should be in school. Please remove that recommendation from your website. Your recommendation for remote learning is detrimental to the health of our children. Their mental and physical health is declining with remote learning. Next comments from Kathleen Henry. It's regarding U46 high schooler. It says, please do what you can to allow the high school students to return to in-person learning. The children that are facing both academic and social emotional difficulties, they need to return to some normalcy and have face-to-face interaction. It can be done safely. I've been teaching in person since August. The children adapt quickly to the changes in protocol and are thriving in. Our children deserve the same opportunity. Please do what is best for our children. Next comments from Terry Piper. It states, current transmission metric recommendations. Please consider changing the recommendations to the school district. They are following these guidelines strictly and will not allow children to go into the proposed hybrid plan. Due to them, many districts are around the state and country have safely been in school with no mass spreading of the virus. Our kids have been at home since March. Remote learning is failing our kids. Their mental, emotional, social, and academic well-being is in jeopardy. The longer this continues, please make choices in the best interest of our kids' physical and mental health. Next comments from Nicole Pekarek, Pekarek. It's regarding help students return to learning, in-person learning ASAP. Dear Board, please consider the following items to help our children return to their classrooms like so many others are doing. The DuPage County Board needs to advocate for their county school districts who feel it's impossible to go against the DuPage County Health Department guidance that says schools should be remote in times of high COVID transmission. Many districts feel their hands are tied because it's not in their best interest to go against the advice of the Health Department and the DuPage County Board. Please return your leadership Please use your leadership capabilities and have the health department change the return to school framework. In-person learning should be prioritized, and in times of high transmission should be mitigated with mask distance as much as possible, healthy hygiene, cleaning and disinfecting, screening for symptoms, and contact tracing. The DuPage County Board has the power to influence change. Thank you, Nicole Pekarak. Next comment is from Stephanie Siska, Siska. It's regarding advocate for school opening. I write respectively to ask that you advocate for DuPage County school districts, e.g. 203, who are hiding behind the DuPage County DPHD guidelines to prevent moving forward towards in-person learning in our communities. The 203 superintendent and BOE are claiming their hands are tied, while other public school districts around us, for example, District 200, as well as countless private schools and downstate districts open successfully, many operating 5 days a week in person. Please consider getting our kids back in school as a priority on your agenda. Children are declining in remote learning. I have 3 junior high students who used to love school and now find it pointless. The list of experts recommending children be in school is now exhaustive and cannot be ignored. Children are at higher risk for mental health issues, and they are for COVID. The burden of protecting the vulnerable should not be on children's shoulders. Thank you. Next comments from Mandy Lamb. It's regarding return to school. The DuPage County Board of Health is in charge. The DuPage County Board is in charge of the Board of Health and the DuPage County Health Department. This request is to advocate for change in the DuPage County Health Department return to school framework. The DuPage County Board needs to advocate for their county school districts who feel it's impossible to go against the DuPage County Health Department guidance that says schools should be remote in times of high COVID transmission. In-person learning should be prioritized, and in times of high transmission should be mitigated with mask distance as much as possible, healthy hygiene, cleaning, disinfecting, screening for symptoms, and contact tracing. It is vital to those children's academic, social, and emotional well-being that they attend in person. Thank you for your time and consideration. Next comment is from Kristen Boxall. It's regarding opening of schools. It says, please support Elmhurst Community School District 205 in opening schools immediately. That concludes her comment. Next comment is from Gracia Livie, Livie. It says, it's regarding DuPage County Schools. It says, hi, please consider loosening the guidelines so that Naperville 203 will consider with more confidence bringing children back into school. NCUSD 203 District Board and Board are reading the county guidance as a mandate. This is paralyzing them to inaction. They are blaming the DuPage County Health Department for keeping them closed. Other DuPage County public schools have been safely open for hybrid for weeks. Children are suffering academically, socially, emotionally from being locked out of school for almost a year. Please change the county guidance to recommend that schools are open for in-person learning, including junior and high schools. Thank you, Gracia Livie. Next comments is from Sadia Zakira, Zackria. It's regarding no subject. It says, we are asking based upon science and medical recommendations from Drs. Fauci, Redfield, and this comment appears to have been cut off. It's also quite long. Could I ask staff if you would be so kind as to copy the comment received on the December 21st at 11:32 and get me a copy that I can read, and I'll read it at the end. Thank you. Next comment is from Kate Walsh. It's regarding guidance wording. Please change the county guidance to recommend schools are open for in-person learning, including preschool, junior high, and high school. The NCUSD 203 is reading the county guidance as a mandate and using it as an excuse to not act and keep schools closed. They're blaming the DuPage County Health Department for the school closure. Other DuPage County public schools have been safely open for hybrid for weeks. Children are suffering academically, socially, and emotionally from being locked out of for almost 1 year. Please change the wording so children have the choice to attend school if their family feels that is the best option for them. That concludes the comment. Next comment's from Joan Park. It's regarding back to in-person school initiative. It states, I am writing as a frustrated, concerned, tax-paying Naperville resident on behalf of my children. We have had enough of the fear-promoting, liability-worried officials. Children need to be back in school in person months ago. As so many have been around the country since August. Parents and children with these beliefs need to have this option. We know that COVID-19 has an extremely low mortality rate for children. The majority of people who fall into the teacher category, every medical association advocates for in-person learning now. I feel that Naperville District 203 should have done better and needs to stop delaying in-person school. Please put our children and their education and well-being first. We have all had enough. Next comment is from Kate Knuth, Knuth. It's regarding D203 return to learn. For months, the NCUSD 203 School District Board has been reading the county health data around COVID-19 guidance as a mandate, which has paralyzed them into inaction. At every board meeting, the NCUSD Board has used the DCHD reporting as a reason for keeping our schools closed. Please help us. Our children are suffering academically, socially, and emotionally from being locked out of school for almost 1 year. Please consider adjusting the county guidance to recommend schools are open for in-person learning, including junior and high school. That Your time and consideration are greatly appreciated. That concludes the comment. Next comment's from Tim Doyle. It's regarding COVID-19 health metrics. It says, update your health metrics to allow in-person learning in our schools. Our kids should not be made to suffer needlessly. That concludes his comment. Next comment is from Jennifer Fromm, FRAHM. It's regarding clear metrics, get our kids back to school. Dear board, and our community needs you to show good leadership through clear metrics to get our kids back to school. Your communications are having deeper impact than they should and very negative impact on our kids. Districts are afraid to pivot even slightly from your guidance in this litigious society. Please follow Dr. Fauci's guidance and advocate for getting our kids back to school with some clear guidelines. My kids have diagnosed learning disabilities. You are especially doing these kids a disservice by preventing them from being in school. This generation of students needs you. Don't let them down. Next comment is from M. Catherine Christensen. It's regarding DuPage County needs to support kids going back to school. It states, NCUSD 203 District and Board are reading the county guidance as a mandate. It isn't as I read it. Please make this clear. This is paralyzing them to inaction. They blame the DuPage County Health Department mandates as the reason for their inability to make plans for hybrid or a full return to classroom. They are blaming the DuPage County Health Department for keeping them closed. Other DuPage County public schools have been safely open for hybrid for weeks. What D203 is seeing in your guidance, the others don't. Please make it clear so that children in a school district the size of D203 can return to the children to the classroom. Children are suffering academically, socially, and emotionally from being locked out of school for almost 1 year. This will cause huge issues that DuPage County will need to deal with. Please change county guidance to recommend schools are open for in-person learning, including junior high and high school. Next comment is from Michael Albert. It's regarding open the schools. Given the number of neighboring state that has been open for in-person instruction, as well as all numbers have been declining, case counts are not as relevant as hospitalizations and death, I implore you to immediately open all schools. Additionally, all the science is there to support our children that are not super spreaders. The media would have you believe. Finally, the mental damage being done to our kids is borderline irreparable, so please consider that in your deliberation. Overdoses, suicides, and all related isolation cases have far outpaced the virus issues, so consider what is being done to our children now and the impact it will have on them for generations. Next comment is from Kelly Carpenter. It's regarding District 203 school reopening. It states, DuPage County Health Department guidance says that schools should be remote in times of high COVID transmission and said that the power rests with each individual school district. Please advocate and use your leadership capabilities. And if the health department changed their return to school framework, in-person learning should be prioritized and in times of high transmission should be mitigated with mask, distance as much as possible, healthy hygiene, cleaning and disinfecting, screening for symptoms and contact tracing. The health and safety of an entire generation is on your shoulders. You have the power to make change. Thank you. Next comment is from Stephanie Fritz. It says the DuPage County Board needs to advocate for their county high school districts who feel it's impossible to go against the DuPage County Health Department guidance that says schools should be remote in time of COVID transmission. Please use your leadership capabilities and have the health department change your return to school framework. In-person learning should be prioritized and in times of high transmission should be mitigated with masks, distance as much as possible, healthy hygiene, cleaning, disinfecting, screening for symptoms, and contact tracing. The DuPage County Board has the power to influence change. Please use it to help DuPage County students. Next comment is from Amy Crowley. It's regarding DuPage County Health Department Return to School Framework. The DuPage County Health Department Return to School Framework dated August 28th should be revised based upon the evidence collected from schools in the area which have been open during the fall. Both the DuPage County Board and the Health Department should be aware of the mental effects of the school shutdowns on children and teenagers in our community and prioritize the restart of in-person instruction in our area. Current guidelines provide such narrow criteria as to make reopening extremely difficult and districts follow your guidelines. It is enormously discouraging to students and families who can feel the entire school year, not just semester, slipping away. Now that vaccines are becoming available, it certainly seems time to rework those guidelines to give schools the encouragement they need to welcome kids back. Next comments from Brad Watcher, W-A-C-H-T-E-R, Wachter, apologies. Next, it's regarding return to in-person learning. It says, as of today, December 22nd, 2020, there have been 0 reported COVID-19 deaths of school-aged children in DuPage County, yet our local school boards have relied on DuPage County Department of Health's statistics to keep schools closed and healthy children quarantined at home for over 9 months. The mental, social, academic consequences of these policies have been well documented, and I won't repeat them here. Of course, statistics used are positive rates, not positivity rates, not cases, not hospitalized, not deaths, but test positivity. The least relevant of all statistics to describe the risk of students 18 and under in the school environment. More than 9 months, healthy students have been quarantined rather than following a policy to quarantine actually infected individuals as prescribed by Illinois law and protect vulnerable teachers and staff. This must stop now. There's no logical case to be made that essential activities can continue in DuPage. At the same time, children must be it must be kept from school. The DuPage County Board must not allow school boards to use their Department of Health statistics as a scapegoat for their lack of leadership. We must now face the absurd situation where the CDC and Federal COVID Task Force are recommending students be back in school, but local school boards are using county health data to preserve an alternative narrative that is both political and destructive to our kids. Open the schools now. Thank you. Is that okay? Going back to the comment that was cut off, it's again Sadia Zakaria. It's regarding no subject there, but it says, we are asking, based upon science and medical recommendations from Drs. Fauci, Redfield, and several prominent Illinois physicians, please ask the county schools to allow the option for kids to return in January. It's been proven that the following mitigation strategies work, and we can get kids back into classrooms if they so choose. We are additionally asking that you advise schools to adjust metrics in COVID community spread statistics when considering whether schools should be open, should be rooted in COVID in buildings, schools, students, and staff. Not all of DuPage County nor their respective cities. We have seen over the past 9 months that the spread statistics of those long-term care facilities vary greatly from those individuals and large retailers like Walmart and Costco. Retailers have effectively demonstrated the ability to remain open safely with full enforcement of protocols. Using vastly different sources of community spread statistic doesn't give a fair representation or picture to our school community. For example, Dr. Mia Taormina of DuPage Medical Group says in WBEZ's Reset podcast, the schools are effective at minimizing spread because they follow safety protocols. I've been on the side of wanting our kids back in school from the get-go. I think there's definitely room to really focus on getting them back after this holiday break here. For those who are in full virtual models. As you know, CPS is planning exactly that. We have support of Dr. Fauci, we have the support of Dr. Redfield, we have the support of many prominent physicians in the Chicagoland area who are also in agreement. You are absolutely correct. We have created some of the safest spaces in schools by using mitigation strategies, and we are not seeing lateral spread of this virus. There are no absolutes. There's certainly going to be protocols for potential outbreaks and potential concerns, but among all these children and staff members who test positive are doing so from known exposures outside of the school. If a child comes to school, the chances of that child who is properly masked, even when showing symptoms, passing that to another child who's masked or masked adults are very slim. There's long sources that I'll include when we pass them along. Bullet point 2, CDC guidelines. Children and COVID-19 in general. Children with COVID-19 are less likely to have severe symptoms than adults who experience an asymptomatic infection, meaning they do not have any signs or symptoms of the disease. Analysis of pediatric COVID-19 hospitalization data from 14 states from early March to late July found the cumulative rate for COVID-19 associated hospitalizations among children was over 20 times lower compared to adults, 8.0 versus 164.5 per 100,000 population. Although the cumulative rate is low, 1 in 3 children hospitalized with COVID-19 was admitted to an intensive care unit, so the risk is not negligible. Similarly, the death rate among school-aged children is much lower than the rate among adults. Also, the comparatively low risk for hospitalization and death among children themselves must be contextualized to the risk posed to teachers, school administrators, and other staff in the school environment. The risk of teachers and school administrators and other staff in the school is expected to mirror that of other students in the community if they contract COVID-19. To be sure, the best available evidence from countries that have reopened schools indicate that COVID-19 poses low risks to school-aged children, at least in areas where with low community transmission. That said, the body of evidence is growing that children of all ages are susceptible to SARS-CoV-2 transmission, and contrary to earlier reports, may play a role in transmission. The many benefits of in-person schooling should be weighed against the risks posed by COVID-19 spread. Of key significance, in-person learning is in the best interest of students when compared with virtual learning. Application and adherence to mitigation measures provided in this document and similar to those implemented at essential workplaces can help schools reopen and stay open safely for in-person learning. There's another source citation. To date, our local school boards have been hesitant to take the risk of reopening schools when the science and data demonstrates that is exactly what they should be doing. Please use your authority at the county level to offer school choice so that those parents who want kids back in person have the opportunity to do so. That concludes the comment. Pardon me, I need a little water. The next comment's from Amy Puffer. It's regarding DuPage County Health Department COVID metrics. Please direct the DuPage County Department of Health to change their COVID metrics for opening schools. We need our schools open for in-person learning immediately. Our children are failing and depressed and need to get back in the classroom. We have a bigger pandemic on our hands now, a mental health pandemic. All the research I've done clearly indicates that elementary, middle school, and high school students have a 99+% survival rating, and that schools are not the hosts of COVID virus. Next comment is from Amy Puffer, and it's a duplicate. The next comment is from Amy Laverty. It's regarding no subject. It says the DuPage County Board needs to advocate for their county school districts who feel it's impossible to go against the DuPage County Health Department guidance that says schools should be remote in times of high COVID transmission. Many districts feel their hands are tied because it's not in the best interest to go against the advice of the Health Department and the DuPage County Board. Please use your leadership capabilities and have the Health Department change their return to school framework. In-person learning should be prioritized, and in times of high transmission should be mitigated with mask, distance as much as possible, healthy hygiene, cleaning, disinfecting, screening for symptoms, and contact tracing. The DuPage County Board has the power to influence change. Please use it to help DuPage County students. Next comments from Joanne D. It's regarding reopening of schools. As a parent, I believe that it is very important the DuPage County Health Department reevaluate the in-school learning for students. Social and emotional behavior is key for a child to learning development in the early years as well as the later years. Based upon the numbers which are public, the death rate from suicides in our counties from children's age 9 to 19 are higher than the COVID death rates. The health department needs to also consider the mental health and outcome of all these children when they are making their decision. Private schools have been open since the beginning of the year in many counties and follow guidelines with minimal transmission. It's going to be almost a year and we still have no solution for these kids. E-learning is not the answer. It's caused anxiety, it's caused depression, and it's also caused students to give up. For those who wish to keep their children at home or the teachers that wish to continue with e-learning, let that be an option, but open up the schools. We are going to have a generation that will be addicted to antidepressants, anxiety, and suicidal thoughts. Discuss far and beyond what anybody could have imagined. If you're going to look at numbers based upon the numbers from the age group of students, as I stated before, from the numbers that I seen publicly published, suicide deaths are higher than COVID deaths in many counties. A majority of the deaths that are being reported are mainly from retirement homes and assisted living. As I indicated before, private schools have been open. Our children deserve an education. Instead, they feel like failures, isolated in their rooms, which once was their sanctuary, but now it's their classroom, testing area, studying area, and lunchroom. Please consider the mental health of the students and base numbers off of the appropriate age group, not base school closing off of numbers of seniors who are in nursing homes and assisted living facilities, which are the majority of the deaths. Thank you for your time, and I hope you make the right decision for the children of our future. Next comments from Rebecca Inglese, E-N-G-L-E-S-E. It's regarding make full-time in-person learning a choice. Our children need to be given their schools back. There are many reasons this is true, and everybody has spoken about them. You need to start listening and doing what is best for those who choose full-time in-person learning. We know what's best for our children. Give us the choice so we can do what is best for our children. Next comment is from Rebecca Inglese. Please give us a choice to do what's right for our children by giving us a choice for full-time in-person school. That concludes her second comment. Next comment's from Carrie Norris. It's regarding change. It says, the DuPage County Board has the power to influence change. Please use it to help many DuPage County students get back into school. In-person learning should be prioritized no matter what it takes. Help make our administration more comfortable in placing our kids back in their school buildings. Recommending continuous extended, fully remote learning is incredibly dangerous on so many fronts. Please help create positive change for the health and well-being of our kids. Next comments from Agnieszka Bajorek, A-G-N-I-E-S-Z-K-A, last name B-H-A-O-R-E-K. It's regarding reopened schools. It says, we need our kids, especially those with IEP, to come back to in-person instruction ASAP, full-time 5 days. It's crucial for their academics and also mental health. Per Dr. A. Fauci interview on November 29th, 2020, if you look at the data, the spread among children is not very big at all. Illinois schools are not COVID-19 super spreaders. Data shows it's safe to keep schools open again, says Dr. Daniel Johnson, Chief of Pediatric Infectious Diseases at University of Chicago Medical Center. There's a citation to a news article. Based upon the existing evidence regarding their limited role primary school-age children play in the transmission of COVID-19 and the heavy burden of decreased educational exposure on their health, that restoring access to in-person school education should be an immediate priority. Next comments from Mary Beth Baskin. Mary Beth. It's regarding school return to in-person learning. It says, please consider removing your recommendations and stipulations that schools should not reopen for in-person learning. Schools can have been safely opened with not large outbreaks in communities, proving schools can safely open with the right protocols and precautions in place. Dr. Fauci, the CDC, and other doctors have stated children should be back in person learning. That concludes the comment. Next comment's from Sarah Forster. It's regarding Health Department school opening guidance and vaccine priorities. It states over 200 public comments in support of the revised COVID school reopening guidelines were read into the record of the last Health Department public meeting. The CDC has reduced its quarantine period for those in contact with COVID positive individuals from 14 to 10 or 7 with the test days. IDPH has held press conferences supporting this change. The CDC has prioritized COVID vaccine distribution for teachers, the DuPage County pediatric mental health admissions, and emergency visits and private provider use are significantly elevated from 2019 levels. DuPage County school districts are saying that in-person, non-remote learning school cannot happen because DCHD guidelines strongly suggest keeping schools closed where general case positivity exceeds a certain number. The DCHD guidelines for schools do not take into account school adherence to CDC and ISB mitigation measures, which allow schools to be open in spite of mental health and learning harms to our children by having closed schools. My local district has said it will be months before our teachers are vaccinated and schools may be fully reopened. Our kids are in crisis, and yet the health department board won't meet till February. Health companies have been given so much vaccine supply that those vaccines are being administered to non-hospitalists and to fitness center staff. Please direct DuPage County Health Department to get the vaccine to all DuPage County Public School teachers immediately. Please direct DCHD to update its quarantine guidelines in line with the CDC. Please finally direct the DuPage County Health Department to update its COVID-19 school guidelines to align with the Illinois Department of Public Health and Illinois State Board of Education, not Arizona. Remove recommendations that kids should be kept out of school. The mental health and learning loss data support a recommendation of the health department that provided mitigation measures such as cleaning and mask wearing are in place. Schools should fully reopen to all students. If this cannot be done, at least DCHD can do is remove its close the schools guidelines to align recommendations with the CDC, IDPH, and ISB guidelines. Don't let school administrators use DCHD guidelines as an excuse to exclude kids from school. Our children are in crisis. Please provide DCHD the resources it needs to get vaccines to teachers and update its COVID guidelines. Thank you for your time and service to our community. Next comment is from Patty Weber. It's regarding Advocate for DuPage County School Children. Dear DuPage County board members, as a lifelong resident of DuPage and as a mother of 4 children, I urge you to advocate for DuPage County school children by encouraging the DuPage County Health Department to change their stance on guidelines for returning to school in high times of transmission. I'm sure you agree that in-person learning is what's best for our children for their academic, social, and emotional growth. Almost daily now we're hearing tragic stories of children taking their own lives because it's too much for them to not be in school with its activities and socialization. In-person learning also allows for mitigation practices such as mask wearing, distancing as much as possible, healthy hygiene, cleaning and disinfecting, screening for symptoms, and contact tracing. Is better for some children and families versus in their homes and communities where these practices aren't taking place at all. Please use your leadership capabilities and have the health department change the return to school framework. The DuPage County Board has the power to influence change. Please use it to help DuPage County children. Thank you. Respectfully, Patty Weber. The last comment is from Kim Magnuson. It's regarding school reopening. It says, I'm a mom of a junior at the Waubonsee Valley High School. He is failing all but one class. He is miserable and needs to be in class. He has anxiety and depression and sleeps most days. I can't motivate him, nor can I stay home with him because I have to work. Please consider the parameters of the whole pandemic so that the kids can be back in school full-time, not part-time, full-time. Thank you, a very concerned parent. That concludes public comment.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. McCarthy. That motion and our entertaining this process to go back to public comment was under the order of old business. So I'm going to move on to the next order of business entitled new business. Is anyone seeking recognition on the order of new business? Anyone, please make yourself known verbally.
Member Chavez, please.
Member Chavez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to draw attention to the fact that in the last meeting, there was some concern that there may not be a quick turnaround from our health department on contacting some of the COVID cases in our area. And I wanted to let the members know that I think that when Karen said that her turnaround has greatly increased, I experienced that in our own family. When we had a positive case in our family, we received a phone call within 24 hours from the health department wondering if we needed access to services or help with getting groceries or help getting out to the things that we may need in the community. Luckily, we only had one positive case in our household and we were able to keep it that way. So we all did quarantine, but we did have groceries delivered and things like that. But I want to encourage the people of DuPage County to work with the health department when they call to take advantage of these resources, because as we just had a big conversation about the way that we are going to turn this community around for our businesses, for our schools, is to get these numbers down. And I think that when I was looking at yesterday's report, we're still at around 12%. And if we can encourage people that when they are positive or they have someone in their home that's positive, to allow the county to step in with these resources and help. I mean, we were shocked that we got that phone call so soon. And I was actually shocked at what the county is offering. And I want to say thank you to the county. I want to say thank you to Karen Ayala and all of her people who are working so hard, because it's a tremendous resource for our community. And I encourage everyone to take advantage of it. So thank you.
Very nice, Member Chavez. Anyone else seeking recognition under the order of new business? New business. Anyone? Hearing no one. I am informed we do not have anything to come before us on the order of executive session. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Selman.
Second, Chaplin.
There's a motion by Member Selman, seconded by Member Chaplin, to adjourn this meeting to Tuesday, January 12th, 2021 at 10 a.m. All those in favor say aye.
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 Mr. Chair, roll call vote.
Roll call.
I was afraid of that. So yes, I'm sorry. Forgive me. Please, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Selman.
Aye.
Tornatore. Zay.
Aye.
Aye.
Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart.
Aye.
DeCiani Eckhoff.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Hart. Krajewski.
Aye.
LaPlante.
Aye.
Ozog.
Aye.
Pachowski. Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge. And Schwarzy.
Okay, thank you very much. The roll call indicates that the meeting is adjourned. So, hey, thank you for a good, thorough discussion of all the issues that were on the agenda today. And please, everyone have a healthy and happy holiday, and look forward to seeing you in the new year. Take care.